Okay, here's how this video is going to go. First, I'm going to talk about my thoughts on the movie, then do the usual scene analysis going through the movie, and then conclusive thoughts. So I learned a lot having rewatched it since 2018. In the theater, I really only focus on the visuals as I struggle enough to pay attention to a movie. I need subtitles, otherwise I miss details or can't hear what the characters are saying. Plus, I like to rewind if I don't understand, which is happening to me a lot more lately. Maybe I need to remember to take my vitamin D and magnesium supplements. So what I learned is that the movie is rich in lore. I feel like one movie was awesome as a starting point, but there's so many other kingdoms to explore. There's 7 kingdoms. Atlantis as the main ruling one, where King Atlan settled it along with Zebul. The secondary kingdom and home to Mera and King Nereus, which I believe Atlan would have been Ocean Master, no? The other 5 are the fishermen people, the brine, the deserters who got wiped out when their home was dried out, and the trench. As you can see, some of these kingdoms were driven mad and savage over time. So really there's only Atlantis and Zebul as the ruling families of Atlantis. I think the fishermen have their own section. Alright, let's talk about my introduction to Aquaman. I love Aquaman. I've loved the character since Injustice. I really didn't think he was so cool until that game. The stage map you played in was beautiful, and I like the royal nature of his world. How proper and just he is while still humbling himself enough to be with the League. Of course, that version isn't Jason's Aquaman, which Jason as Aquaman, I'm not the biggest fan of, honestly. He looks cool, and that scene in the beginning is where he shines, but I don't buy him as a leader type. It does fit the character as this outsider type, but not who I envisioned when I played Injustice. Phil Lamar just has a way of expressing the voice of a king.
Almighty Neptune!
I did like how this Arthur is maybe a little weird and possibly neurodivergent. Like he doesn't remember the Atlan hologram.
What did you say?
Something trident.
Or what the mission is after kissing Mera.
What's the plan again?
I found that to be very relatable. Not the kissing part, of course, because I've never done that, clearly. Patrick Wilson, Nicole Kidman, and Willem Dafoe are the best actors here. Though Tem is good too in the scenes he had. In fact, Tom Curry and Atlanta had better chemistry than Arthur and Mera. The only good scene they had was after Mera kisses Arthur. So maybe they just suck at playing the nervous will they won't they be lovers part. I mean, they're both hyper attractive people, so they probably didn't have to go through that phase. Maybe they'll be better in the sequel? Alright, let's talk about the story. I think the story is fine. It's not that deep, but it's very immersive, and I love the globe-trotting adventure style. We get to go to Italy, we go to the Sahara, we go to the center of the earth. Great stuff, and I imagine some people were like, wow, the movie still isn't done. In the theater, of course. Black Manta and his father are a little strange, both in acting but also in motive. Like Manta, aka David's father, who's named Jesse, is really bad. First of all, he shoots Aquaman with a grenade launcher when his son is right next to him. Could have injured him. Then when his father's trapped, he just decided to blow himself up. What if his son decided to stay out of fear or loyalty? He probably would have disowned him in classic villain fashion. They also hyperfixate on the Manta motif, so they're also a little neurodivergent like Arthur is probably. Now the music, oh man, it's so beautiful. The same composer from Wonder Woman is back, Harry Gregson Williams. In my opinion, not as good as Wonder Woman, but it hits when it needs to. Like the end credits even sound like Wonder Woman's theme. Well, that's my review of the movie. Now let's get to the scene analysis.
Category 4 Hurricane Arthur is due to make landfall sometime after 2 p.m.
How about Arthur?
After the hurricane?
After mentioned.
Arthur Curry is named after not the hurricane, but the Arthurian legendary King Arthur. So we never found out what was that device that caused the earthquake that doomed Atlantis.
But we became too ambitious.
I assume from the word choice of ambition that it was meant to be a new invention that would take Atlantis to new heights. At first I was like, why does Atlantis stay with this lighthouse keeper guy? Like, why doesn't she go back to her kingdom? But then she says she left an arranged marriage with King Orvax. We don't see this guy in the movie, but he's also Orm's father. Basically, Atlanta has Orm after she leaves Tron.
Where I come from, the sea carries our tears away.
Not here. Here you feel them.
All life came from the sea, so if we want to understand ourselves, we must journey to where we began. Now today, we have better maps of Mars than we do of our own sea.
I never thought of the sea in this way. I'm a Catholic myself, so I believe that God created us possibly from the earth or sand. But my belief doesn't mean that this didn't happen either. There's a lot of vagueness in between Adam and Eve and the creation story. There's a lot of time for evolution to happen. I will say this small line had ignited an intrigue in the sea because it's true. There's a whole other world out there and we don't even need a spaceship to go there. David's grandfather was a frogman in World War II.
He was so stealthy in the water, his unit nicknamed him Manta.
Basically military scuba divers who specialize in underwater reconnaissance and amphibious operations. Cool stuff, I never knew about them before. Like real life Aquaman. I love how when you dive deep into the origins of DC Comics, it all goes back to the World Wars.
Hey! You need to live so you can kill that son of a bitch!
Oh yeah, I remember people memeing this line in 2018, and yeah, it made me burst out laughing, which I rarely do. It's just, you'd think a father would give a better motivator that also has his sacrifice mean something, instead of just that line. What a great shot. This whole sub scene is so cool for Aquaman. Feels like the oil rig sequence in Man of Steel, which actually, this movie sparks a sort of soft reboot for the DCEU. Zack Snyder's no longer part of it, and the tone is completely different, and we even get a new producer. This is when Peter Safran joins the scene. It's no longer Zack Snyder and Deborah Snyder. It's Peter Safran. And he's been producing all the DCEU movies up until the recent Superman movie. So while you can view Superman as the real reboot, I think it goes back even further up to Aquaman. That's when like everything changed. That's when the Peter Safran era begins.
But I promise you this. If Orm attacks, I'll treat him exactly the same way your people treated her. With no mercy.
Huh. Set up for when he later does show him mercy.
You know, I don't even know your name.
It's Princess Mera Javella Chala. You may call me Mera.
Yeah, so Mera didn't actually have a name in the comics like this. I love stuff like this. The reason Mera's hideout is in a decayed ship in an air bubble is, first off, they're in an old part of the city, where the poor or lesser beings live. Second, these beings cannot breathe in air as well as highborn beings like Orm, so they literally can't enter the ship and just rob them or something. And since they're in the old city, the highborn beings, they don't go into the old city, so they can't find them until they do for some reason.
Once you've obtained the pledge of the four kingdoms, you will be ordained Ocean Master.
That is merely a title.
Ocean Master is a title, basically Lord of the Seas?
As Ocean Master, you'll be commander of the greatest military might on this planet.
So did Atlan have this title? Does Arthur have this title at the end of the movie? Atlan's trident is forged from Poseidon steel. What the heck does that mean? What is Poseidon steel? So the Sahara segment does catch you off guard, but that's on purpose. It's completely different from the rest of the movie. But I like that a horror director can experiment with a tone like this. So Atlan's clue in the bottle points them towards the Romulus statue in Sicily, the first king of Rome. What significance does this hold for Atlantis? Do they just venerate one of the first kings of one of the greatest civilizations in human history? Dr. Lin. So I'm thinking this is an Aquaman villain from the comics? I hope he shows up in the Lost Kingdom. I think he does. I don't remember. I didn't actually watch Lost Kingdom.
You waiting for an invitation? Get in!
Illegal combatant on the grid.
Get in.
Illegal combatant on the grid.
Get in.
Alright, final thing I want to talk about. A little reference I noticed in the movie. This movie is so like Tron Legacy. You have the son of this great legendary figure. They're both lost in their own worlds until a capable woman aids in reuniting them. The villain is this powerful leader who motivates his people to take the fight to the other world. Apart from the story, the visuals are also very Tron inspired. Okay, so I'm done with the scenes, but I just want to conclude with the visual design. It's so cool, and I actually prefer it way more than Snyder's. I like his movies, but this is just much more comic accurate. It's fun, it's light. Like I said before, this is also the first DC movie produced by Peter Safran, who is now basically the other half of the DC Kevin Feige. The other half being James Gunn, of course, which makes a lot of sense. I won't cover it here, in depth at least, but I'm very interested to see the behind the scenes of this DCEU and then who's behind them, and like figures like Walter Hamada and stuff like that. I didn't get too much into that, but I would love to now. I think it's interesting to see how it all weaves together. I think it's important to look at behind the scenes material in order to understand any art piece, really. You can only get a small piece of the puzzle when watching the movie, but not the reasons for why the movie is the way it is. Finally, does anyone know of any good sites or videos that discuss the creation of movies as a whole? I want to learn who's in the credits and what they do, but most documentaries are very surface level. Well, this has been Josh. Next movie is Shazam. I remember being so hyped for it and ultimately being disappointed. But now after 6 years, I think I'll be softer on it.